Welcome to Hyper Live, and our special guest today, Luke McManus from Team Topologies. And looking forward to talking about Team Topologies. We're going to provide a little brief introduction to the main concepts, but it's a very practical kind of focus session on how do you actually apply Team Topologies in your organization. And looking forward to Luke walking us through some of the ideas of team interaction modeling. But first of all, Luke, I'll let you introduce yourself, and Daniel, of course, co-host.
Hi, everyone. Luke from Team Topologies. I've been lucky enough to work with the guys from Team Topologies for the last year and a half as the APAC region lead. I'm all about teams, people, and value.
A great combination.
Over to you, Daniel.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to chatting with you, Luke. So, hi, everyone. Probably pretty familiar with me by now. So, the founder of Great CTO, focusing on consulting and coaching of CTOs. And I also work closely with the HYPR team and also Conflux. So, yeah.
Cool. Well, do you want to kick us off, Luke? And maybe we've got a nice Miro board to share to help people with some visualizations. And yeah, I think you're going to start with just reminding people of the core concepts of team topologies before we kick into the practical elements.
Cool. So Daniel's sharing the key concepts page. It's everyone knows about the shapes and the interaction modes, but it's worthwhile everyone having a look and reminding themselves of some of the principles and patterns that go along with the shapes and interaction modes. So some of the core principles, like focusing on flow rather than structure. High trust is non-negotiable. We want to have long-lived teams. A lot of much of the focus of team topologies is reducing cognitive load and cognitive limits on teams. Safety is also non-negotiable. Continuous everything, and getting rid of all of our dependencies is another focus. So
yeah, that's great.
We will share that for everyone to have a read off.
What would you, any advice, Luke, in terms of if someone's really interested in these ideas, but maybe doesn't feel like their organization or their team is quite in the right place, looking at those principles?
Yeah, good question, Gareth. I think some of the signals for change that we were discussing earlier are a great place to start. I can pull them up on my Miro if you like. Let me just share my screen.
I'm admiring your background, Luke.
Yeah, cool. Shall we just make this a little bit bigger for a moment? So yeah, do you want to talk us through the signals for change?
Yeah, cool. And feel free to jump in, both of you guys. I love the concept of signals for change. So these are ways of identifying, reasons why teams need to change and why there are problems. So value delivery slowing down, teams feeling overloaded is another one of our strong signals. Context switching, so teams being pulled in lots of different directions across many different domains and technologies and bits and pieces. Most of those things generally have a pretty negative impact on the human beings doing the work, so disengaged teams and people. Communication channels hindering value delivery. So because of our org structures and charts and reporting lines and other things, is the focus really about flow and customer value, or is it about looking inwards at ourselves?
Might an example of that be where a team that needs to get some agreement on something might need to go up the hierarchy and then across the hierarchy and then back down to another team to reach that agreement. Is that what you're describing there?
Perfect example, through the maze, the agreement maze, where that team or that person should in fact probably be empowered to make that decision themselves, if it's about customer or user value that they're delivering. And then probably you go, Gareth.
Yeah, I was just going to say that often we see it's not one of these things. Often we'll see, these things happen. There's symptoms that kind of reinforce each other in a negative way, unfortunately. So we'll often see them at the same time, right? You may be experiencing all of these things at the same time, or a set of these things at the same time.
Indeed, which is a great segue to the last post-it, I suppose. One of the great signals that there's something wrong, or that the team doesn't have everything they need, or that they're not in fact cross-functional at all, is that there's lots of dependencies, handoffs and other things when they need to deliver value.
Yeah, that's an easy one to spot, isn't it?
Totally. So good question before, Gareth, what to do and where to start. What we will quickly show you today is a concept called team interaction modeling. And this is how you actually take the 3 interaction modes that you're probably familiar with and the 4 team types, and actually use them and experiment with how you might apply them in your organization. We'll quickly go through the team types and interaction modes in case people aren't familiar with them. Gareth and Daniel, did you have anything to add quickly before we move in?
No, I think this is a great way to kind of bring us into the interaction modeling. So I'll let you go for it.
Cool. So the most probably well-known team is the stream-aligned team. So that's a team that's aligned to genuine user or customer value. So we want these guys to be delivering value to their end user, and we want them to have everything they need inside that team in order to deliver value. Now, in order to deliver value continuously to their customers, sometimes there's a lot of things that they need. Well, in fact, always there's a lot of things that those teams need to do. So what we often do to get rid of some of the cognitive load and some of the, we'll call it unnecessary heavy lifting, is we offload some of that to teams like a platform team. So a team of a group of teams that provide compelling internal services to development teams to accelerate delivery. So that's things like infrastructure as code, environment provisioning, for example, things that the delivery teams need to do all the time, but but they just need to consume it really, rather than be experts in it. Then we've got the complicated subsystem team. So there's a couple of ways of looking at that team type. Again, it's the idea is offloading cognitive load. It could be a complicated technology, so something like a complicated algorithm, video processing or something like that. But it also could be a complicated business domain, something that requires very specialist knowledge that not everyone in the Streamline team needs to be a specialist in. So we can create a small subset. So something like maybe legislation or some sort of an algorithm, a calculation algorithm for the business. And then we've got our enabling team, and our enabling team is all about change. So they help the Streamline teams to adopt new technologies, tools, and practices, coaching and guiding them. They're also a bit of a sense-making team. So as they're working across all of the different stream-aligned teams, they can start to identify common services that might fit inside of platform teams. They can also look at new emerging and upcoming technologies and help stream-align teams to prepare for the adoption of those things.
So they've got a mixture of like the broader context, but they also have some expertise about what you might do in a given situation, like whether it's splitting out a particular team, or so it's a mix of those two things.
Exactly. A good example for today, I suppose, would be AI. So how do you get all of our different delivery teams that work across different technologies, different stacks, different business domains to adopt similar or a common technology, and that's where you'd use an enabling team.
Mm-hmm.
As you said, they have a bunch of skills, but they don't actually do the delivery. They're more of a teaching or a coaching or a guiding function. And that's where we can segue into the interaction modes. So an enabling team often or always or most of the time facilitates change. So they interact with one of the delivery teams by helping them to learn, and they'll sit with them, they'll help them to do the change, course correct, etc., until the stream-aligned team is comfortable with doing it themselves, and then they'll probably move on to another stream-aligned team. Collaboration's probably a bit of a controversial interaction mode, because when we read all of the business books and all of the blogs and other things, we're told that collaboration is a really good thing and that we should collaborate. But when you think about collaboration comes with a cost. So there's two teams needing to work together. That often requires coordination across the two of the teams, and that comes as a cost. Collaboration also can be a bit of an anti-pattern or a bit of a signal for change. So why do two teams need to continuously collaborate in order to get stuff done?
Yeah, and I think there are some other anti-patterns that you can observe sometimes in larger organizations where people complain about being in meetings all of the time, or they don't have enough time to actually do what they're, if it's development or whatever the particular specialization or skill is. And that's because there's a decision by consensus and too much collaboration, which is definitely, I think it's a really great call out from Team Topologies.
Yeah, so what are they missing? Are they missing the ability to make decisions? Are they missing a skill that the other team has? Yeah, so or both of the above potentially.
Yeah, it can be lots of things.
Some particular authority that sits with one team and not the other team.
Yeah, quality problems or rework, which causes excessive collaboration to fix things.
So when we talk about collaboration in the Team Topologies world, we have a very, very distinct and specific definition, and that is that collaboration is always a short time-boxed activity, obviously high bandwidth, so two teams needing to work together, but there's also a specific outcome or a problem that they're solving. And then at the end of the time box, there's, you retro what you were working on and look at how you went and make sure that it's in fact done. And then you move on. The other thing with the collaboration, the interaction modes, is that there's a bit of an evolution pattern as well. We didn't talk about X as a service yet. So X as a service is probably our ultimate interaction mode. And that's where one team provides one or many teams something as a service. So we just talked about infrastructure as a service before. And the reason why this is the most desired interaction mode is that it often or usually doesn't require any human-to-human interaction. This is more about machine interaction or service interaction. So teams can consume APIs and other things by looking at documentation rather than actually having continuous meetings with other teams in order to work out how to use their service.
So to put it
Yeah.
another way, there's an ability to self-service. So if something is provided X as a service, then you could self-service without interrupting the team that provided that service.
I think there's also another really important point that Team Topologies calls out, and that's historically, I think we've thought about team structures as quite static, when team interactions modes is quite static. And this is really it's making us think about this quite dynamic sort of environment where it might be healthy to change team structures, team interactions, and it's also healthy to be aware of the interaction modes and change those over time. And so those patterns become quite dynamic.
And emergent.
Indeed. Emergent. So and maybe one of the words I want to use is evolution. So let's talk about something new and novel that emerges between two teams. So there is a need for the two teams to get rid of a dependency or to either to learn something new or to solve something. So the idea is that they will collaborate on that problem together for a short time box to work out what the problem actually is. Now, let's say one of the smart people in the team goes, you know what, that's a great candidate to sit in the platform. So we're going to create XYZ as a service, but we wouldn't just throw XYZ as a service over the fence to the Streamline team. What we would do for a short amount of time is facilitate that new service offering and work closely with that Streamline team so that they understand how to consume it. And then we would not throw it over the fence, but we would hand it over cleanly and nicely so that they can continue to self-service. Does that make sense?
And there's a bit of collaboration to start with to ensure if you're building a service, then your customers are, in this case, the Streamline team, for example. So there's got to be some interaction to understand what those real problems are and make sure it's kind of like product thinking for an internal platform-based product, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
An example from my time at Seek, it was a pattern that we repeated quite often, but one was with the paved roads that we set up. And so the team that had provided that service would share what they'd created. They spent some time with some teams. Sometimes they get feedback and go back and improve and enhance that. And then, but ultimately, it was there to be consumed, as a service. Yeah. So that completely resonates with our experience.
It's a great example. Sometimes I know we're working with some organizations at the moment and they call them golden paths in terms of paths to production. So it's a service where if you're on the golden path, then everything's a bit easier. You can move things more quickly, less approvals required because you've that path itself has been approved as kind of a service, if you like. Yeah, very powerful ideas.
Different episode, but I have been playing with the concept of visualizing golden paths and escape hatches using value dynamics mapping.
Cool.
Love to share that with you guys as well.
Sounds good.
Future episode. Love it.
Yeah.
So I think most people know all of these shapes and interaction modes. I don't think many people know what I consider as one of the most important shapes in the toolkit, and that is the undefined team type.
Yeah, really, really powerful, this idea, isn't it?
So, do you want to talk to it, Gareth, and then I'll do my spiel? Or
I was just going to say that the thing I love about this the most is, I see people trying to map their organizational structures and interactions to the team topologies patterns, and that's really not where they're at. It's and I think starting with undefined is a much more powerful way of kind of going, look, we're starting from a blank slate, and then just let's be really deliberate in terms of where we are actually using these patterns versus assuming that we are. So yeah, really, really powerful.
And the benefit there is so that you're not starting by trying to force fit what you're already doing to the team topologies approach, because then you've already made a bunch of compromises and you haven't really acknowledged them.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly right. So when things are undefined, it means that they don't fit into any of these enabling constraints. So the 4 team types or the 3 interaction modes. And that means that something needs to change, which for me is exciting. It means, do we need a new as a service? Do we need to collaborate? Does one team need to facilitate something else for another team? And then why do they not fit into these team types? And then I suppose that's all part of the fun of doing the team interaction modeling.
Just for the viewers, for any of you who have already been applying team topologies concepts within your organization, was this something that you went through? Did you find that you force fit team topologies first and then had some realization later that actually that's what was happening, and you sort of had to go back and redo it?
Yeah, good question. So given that we're sitting in Miro, I thought I'd show everyone, in case they don't know, that there is in fact a Team Topologies shapes palette inside the menu. So you can basically just pull them up and then pull them straight out of here and start modeling with them. Oops, I don't know what Miro's decided to do. But basically, this is the best way to do team interaction modeling across different teams. Across different locations in Miro. Use the shapes in the menu. And what we're going to do is show you a bit of an idea of what the current state would look like if we start to map it out. So as Daniel said, rather than going straight into these shapes and going, right, let's do a streamline team, let's do a platform team, let's do an XYZ team, how about we start with looking at where we are, and if any of what we have today actually is already one of these team types, and if it's not, let's call it an undefined team type. Let's question how the teams are working together. If there's not a clean interaction pattern like as a service, we'll call it undefined. Or if they're not collaborating for a short time box, that's undefined. And then this is the other really powerful shape, which you'll have to create yourself. Unfortunately, it's not in the menu. This is the handoff. showing this is really, really important. And it's one of the reasons that we need, one of the biggest, probably most expensive signals for change is that there's dependencies and handoffs between teams.
Mm-hmm. And I would say that if you're unsure, go with Undefined.
Great
Yeah,
advice.
exactly. Exactly right.
I love the concept of flow in here as well, right? So this is predicated on the idea of we're trying to reduce the time it takes from a great idea or a strategic objective through to customers giving us feedback and generating value, with the concepts of safety and security as part of that. But this is really what we're optimizing for, and that's still not always obvious for people, for leaders, for teams. But I think it's just really important to call out.
From concept to cash, from user to need, I think is
Light
where you're
bulb to
going.
learning.
Yeah, great point, Gareth. This is the other really important, I suppose, one of my other favorite shapes is the flow of change arrow. So we start, when we map our changes and interactions, when we map our interactions between teams, we start from the left and move to the right. And as you said, it's idea to cache, concept to production, and that's the way we do our mapping. I'm going to show you a quick case study that we use at Team Topologies to teach team interaction modeling. It's a fictitious organization called Footprints, and they are an audio tours organization with a website and an app. This is basically what it looks like when we map out our case study. This is a fictitious organization, but it's based on a pretty real life scenario, one that you've probably seen many times.
Mm-hmm.
So starting at the idea end and moving all the way through to production. So you build it, you run it. Ideas are coming from this side of the board. So we've got a UX team with a bunch of product managers. So it's also important to note locations of teams, because that sometimes results in handovers and and unnecessary interactions.
Mm-hmm.
So in this example, we've got the PMs and the UX guys working together. We've called it ongoing because there's no real sort of, there's no real sort of rules or reason around those interactions. Probably reporting lines is one of the reasons that happens. Tickets are created, they go into queues, handovers occur, bunch of meetings to move the context from these people's brains into these people's brains. Now there's 3 different teams in different locations. They all work across the same domain all work across the same bunch of domains. So to work out what people are working on so they don't step on each other's toes and other things, they have to interact all the time. So, scrum of scrums, stand-ups, all sorts of wonderful PI planning, all of our favorite things. When they're done with the development, they have to then transfer that context over to this group of people. There's a DBA team over in Manchester, and then there's some QA guys over in Bucharest. These guys need to work together, and probably these guys need to work together a little bit, as well as handover. And then to get it into production and get it going and working and released to their users, there's some more handovers. There's probably a change approval board and all sorts of other wonderful stuff that we all love. And that is how Footprints makes change.
Yeah, and I think you just mentioned something really important here as well. It's not just the work that's flowing through the system that we're interested in, it's the context around the work, and the information and decision flows as well. And I think that's something that people lose. You think of the original definition of a user story, as card, conversation, confirmation, and the conversation was the context that followed the work, and you can't easily transfer that, right? If you've been working on something for whatever, a week or two, and then you've got to go and hand that bit of work off to someone else, that context is very, very difficult to transfer at that stage, and so the costs are just they're higher than people realize.
Even the ownership, like the feeling of participating and working together diminishes because everyone's starting on this work at different points in time as well. So it's like the groups before you feel more invested in it than you do, and you feel less agency and contribution to the work. I was just picturing, as you were describing this, Luke, I was imagining tagging a bit of work and thinking about when someone was ideating, and I was like, oh, maybe that's in February. And then, with the handovers and waiting on queues and things like that, then the development, maybe that's March or April. And then, there's back and forth and all that sort of stuff. And maybe it's like August by the time the DBAs are working on things, and then release an ops, that one bit of work that we've followed all the way through. Like, maybe it's later that year. And it sounds like a joke, but that's, you could do that with any one bit of work that's been ideated today.
Totally.
And that's where it would
I
be.
mean, if this picture isn't disturbing enough already, with the amount of handovers and other unnecessary interactions between teams and the number of different teams that are involved, then a timeline is probably another really compelling piece of evidence or signal for change.
That's a good point. And often it's just not visible, or that data doesn't exist in the organization. We countless times we've helped organizations, first of all, to see how slow things are, and then that really helps to create momentum around change as well.
Exactly. We're not going to have time to cover it in this episode, but the reason I've drawn or changed the container around all of the different functions is that's kind of where we want to move from and then to. So what we really want to get to is a group of people inside of a container that have all of the capabilities to deliver that flow of change from idea all the way through to production.
And you're talking a conceptual container, Luke, not a Tupperware, right?
Yeah, that'd be probably another interesting visual as well, putting them all in a Tupperware container. Yeah, totally. A conceptual container that contains all of the smart human beings that are required to deliver value from idea to production. And we'll explain some of the secrets and tips and tricks on how to do that, because that sounds like a pretty interesting and difficult problem to solve. How would you get all of those capabilities inside of a team? And then maybe one of the last points we finish on is that that's when we start thinking about capabilities instead of people. So people aren't capabilities. People can have multiple capabilities, and sometimes multiple capabilities can be done by multiple people.
Yep. And teams can possess a collection of capabilities, and that might be. Yeah, I'd love to follow up on another episode and dig right into that.
It's an interesting space, and it's changing a lot, I think, now at the moment as well, with as we see AI coming into development, product management, and engineering and deployment release. Then I think we have an opportunity to broaden the capabilities of individuals and teams.
Yeah, I mean, really, there's no reason why these smart individuals that have all of the skills to do their jobs need to be interacting with other parts of the organization apart from Conway's law and reporting lines, right? So the more and more functions and capabilities we can give this smart group of empowered people inside of this Tupperware container, I think the better. And then that, for me, AI, that's what it's all about. It's about giving this group of smart people more capabilities, but without blowing up their brain and without exceeding their individual and team cognitive load.
In the field of AI, in terms of some work that we've been doing at HYPR, we're quite focused on the individuals part at the moment, particularly engineers. So we have the assisted to agentic AI development course. So if people are interested in that space, what we feel that we're working towards is more than how that manifests across the team. But you got to start somewhere, and getting familiar with the tools and getting the best out of them is where we're focused at the moment. But that's about us. Luke, what else is happening in Team Topologies world?
Good question. Before I talk about what's happening, I'm going to quickly share a few things which links will come in the chat or along with the video. So there's a set of PDF shapes that you can download. You can cut them out and use them in person. There's the Miro add-on in the menu that I've just talked about as well. There's a couple of communities. Also, there's a community on Mighty Networks that we encourage you to sign up for. So have a look at our website. We'll share the link to that as well. And then I suppose in the world of Team Topologies, the most exciting thing that's about to happen is the second edition of the book's about to come out. And the second edition of the book's got a whole bunch of case studies and real life applications of Team Topologies at a bunch of really reputable organizations across the globe.
Yeah, including in New Zealand and Australia, I believe, as well, which is great to hear. And of course, we had Matthew visit us not so long ago, which was fantastic, and did a great talk, generating some interest. I think he was Agile Australia as well, and a brief visit to New Zealand. So hopefully, we're stimulating a bit more interest in this great material.
We hope so.
And Luke, in the book, there's from the differences from the first edition to the second edition, there's more case studies. There's been just like our organizations, it doesn't stand still. So there's been evolution in the shapes. So we showed some of them, the introduction of the undefined shapes, but also how we think about platforms and platform groupings. There's a bunch in there that has evolved through these tools being used with organizations, and that learning has gone back into what they put online and now what's in the book.
It's hard to believe that it's actually been 6 years since the book came out, but there has been a few things that have evolved as good things do. And then the last thing we'll mention is the launch event. Have a look at the URL on your screen or the QR code. And we'll also hopefully pop the LinkedIn Live event to the book launch in the show notes as well.
Fantastic. And so, shall we try and summarize a little bit of what we've covered today? So starting off with a bit of an overview of team topologies, so the 4 team types and the 3 interaction modes.
Takeaway for me on the team types was starting with the stream-aligned team. So we get, same with the flow of change. It's from concept to cache. But sometimes there is too much for that one team. And so we might leverage platform team or a complicated subsystem team to enable the stream-aligned team to focus on, the flow of value. So yeah, I think that was the key call out for me. And then for the interaction modes, I think we spend quite a bit of time talking about collaboration. And collaboration is great as a concept, but Team Topologies and I think practicalities in real life suggests that it should be time bound, and shorter is better.
Yeah.
And don't force things into a certain type of team or interaction mode if they don't fit. Use the undefined team type as a signal for change and a conversation starter potentially in your organization.
Yeah, great advice. So really, just accept where you are. Like, this process is about improvement. And if you're more realistic and transparent about where you are, then it's just a bit easier to see where the improvements can come, I think.
And that's another really important point, is that it's about continuous evolution and continuous improvement. So don't expect when you have done your mapping and you've put your shapes into Miro or onto a table, that's where it ends. It continuously changes as technology changes, as the market changes, as the landscape changes, as the customer changes. So that's what you need to be mentally prepared for as well.
So it's a living document. So once you've mapped your current state, and then you might have made some changes, and you get closer towards that, being organized around value, and you're continuing to update, so Miro or a similar tool like that, or, the physical shapes, that maybe they live somewhere in, your headquarters or something like that. You're updating them, and you might get some signals, like your enabling teams might detect that some teams are under stress, and something might need to change to reduce the cognitive load and ease the burden on them. And as you make the change, you reflect it in the document, and so on and so on.
Yeah, it's such a great call out. I think, we're moving from this concept of, target operating models or static kind of organizational structures to, we have to be more adaptive to sense changes where they're needed in teams, and it's healthy to change team interactions and team structures to promote flow. That's something we should just become. That should become the norm. Constantly sensing and adapting to that information.
Yeah, great point.
Well, that's been absolutely fantastic, Luke. I've really enjoyed this, and it really resonates with our experiences working with organizations, talking about these concepts as well. So thanks very much for joining us, and we look forward to doing future episodes with you.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Super fun for me too, and lots of more to talk about as well.
Yeah, it's great. Thanks a lot, Luke, and thank you, Daniel, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you both.
Cool. Chat with Luke on LinkedIn. He could talk for days on this stuff.
Oh yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.